Hey there, ghosts and ghouls. Warlock Boo here. And I have a question for you. Have you ever had a loved one hurt, sick, dying, and you would do anything it takes to save their life, no matter what trouble it put on you? Well, I have a story for you all. This story involves all of that. Let's see if you would go through this to maybe save the life of someone you cared for. This is Octavia's Melody by Madame Hellspawn. Enjoy. Echo sounded through the dark, empty hall. The only light cast by the candle held by the lonesome pony, walking on like she had done numerous times before. The dimly lit candle held in her mouth, flickering with each step she took, but she was prepared to abandon it if she needed to, as her replacement was hidden somewhere in her bags. Hanging by her side, the cello and its bow was haphazardly balanced on her back, teased with sliding off and landing on the rough, peeling wooden floor. She did her best to keep her most prized possession from tumbling to the ground, fearing that she would disturb the ones that lurked in the theater. Octavia quickly brushed her hair from her eyes, watching the surrounding shadows with extreme apprehension. They told her that before she entered the double doors, she would have to continue with caution. If her candle failed her now, she'd only have 10 seconds to get to the nearest light source. She didn't want to know what would happen if she didn't. Octavia approached the double doors with caution, still watching the shadows. Her eyes were trained on the decaying doors in front of her as she stepped close to it. Form shifted in the corners of her eyes, though she tried to ease her mind by claiming they were just part of her imagination running wild. With 2 deep breaths, Octavia reached a hoof forward and pushed the doors open, and rusted, cracking like the tortured souls that haunted Octavia's mind were all the screaming at once. She shivered upon taking her first step through the doors, feeling the damp air fill her lungs and the sudden cool breeze that coursed through her and dug through her skin down to the bone. She entered the backstage area, or what was left of it. Tattered scraps of old velvet curtains littered the ground. Rusted metal steps leading to the catwalk above, where the abandoned remains of an old Frederator equipment lay, strewn about like a child had recently played with them and had not bothered putting them back. The rotten wood floor was stained with various liquids, some of which Octavia hoped were natural. Incoherent writing had been sprayed on the walls, speaking of vague obscenities and antichristic ideas, no doubt the works of some city more colorfully inhabited. Octavia placed her candle upon a decaying table, allowing herself to rest before she continued any further. Her cello landed on the ground with grace, the bow easing its way down with Octavia's help. The stage was a little further ahead, but Octavia had to prepare herself before continuing any further. Her heart was pounding, her mind reeling, trying to dismiss the shadow that had gathered around her. They glared angrily at her, their lifeless, accusing eyes making her cower in fear. They weren't part of her imagination, nor were they going to go away. The shadows of ponies that have long since abandoned their plane of existence had all gathered to watch, and Octavia was in too deep to leave because she knew that if she did, a fate worse than death itself would befall her. The shadows seemed to be approaching closer, their angry glares becoming more intense as they did so. Octavia looked back at her candle. It was flickering, almost going out completely. Octavia reached into her bag and started a match, lifted it to the dying light, illuminating the dark backstage area. The accusing glares became that of what Octavia could only identify as sympathy. All the figures probably realized her fear and anticipation. The shadows retreated back into the darkness corners of the theater, waiting until it was time for Octavia to begin, which was now. Octavia hauled her cello and bow up on her back and carried the candle to the center of the stage where a chair sat. It was completely spotless, as though it had been recently brought into the building by some unknown being. However, she would not be needing the seat to play the cello. She was required to stand. Moths had covered most of the spots on the velvet curtain, and they had opened as soon as she set her cello down, undisturbed by the sudden movement. Octavia gazed down at what she could only make out to be the seating area. Her candle had tried its best to extend its light down, but was met with little success. Octavia wasn't sure if they were truly there watching her, but she swore that she could feel eyes of apprehension watching her even more. Crimson seats that were filled on the planes of existence were filled in more other planes. Not a single spotlight shone on the lonesome pony on the stage, other than that light of the faint candle that she was teased by the cool breeze that swept in, threatening to blow it out. Octavia set her cello upright, gripping her bow tightly, and stood on her hind legs, leaning on her instrument for only slight support. Her voice had begun, and in mere whispers, speaking incoherent words. Octavia's ears twitched slightly to each audible words. She managed the process. Sweat had dampened her coat as she remembered what they had told her before she had decided to enter the theater. The perfect song will please them, Octavia remembered faintly, her mind still focusing on her task. Then you'll only truly be free of their hold. Pressing her bow against the strings, the pressing of her hoofs on the broad core, she began to play slowly, allowing herself to ease her way into the song. She hadn't a single clue what she was playing, but she knew that if her creative mind failed her now, Octavia would be more among them. A low C note resonated through the theater, hushing all the voices. She continued her slow song, letting her mind make up everything as she went along. The voices were still hushed, and the unseen forms only letting her eye do the talking. Octavia managed to make eye contact with various shadows that paced through the rows. Unknown to her whether or not they were impressed, she could only feel their stares that were cold and sent chills down her spine. She struck a high D and shut her eyes. Her body and mind were in tune with each other, guiding each other to create a beautiful song. Despite her shut eyes, images of what had happened before her arrival to the theater flashed in her mind. Her eyes accumulated moisture as the image raced through her head. Final, twisted form flashed in her head. Octavia faltered mentally, but continued the song. Another flash of her friend, blue mane tangled on the floor, mixed in a pool of crimson liquor, corrupted Octavia's mind, but she continued. Final's body struggling to cling on the last string of her life before the ambulance ponies arrived. Octavia had run after the ponies who had harmed her friend, but gave up. She returned to Vinyl's body, tears in her eyes. Octavia opened her eyes, watching the seats as her candles flickered beside her. Hot tears ran down her mare-aged cheeks, but she never stopped playing the cello. She continued with a newfound determination. The last time Octavia saw her friend, her lover, she was in the hospital, barely hanging on to the threads of life. Octavia had to finish this song, even if it meant her own life would end if she failed. She would not allow the one pony who cared about her most to die because of her mistake she made. Octavia stretched out the last note of her cello. A lump caught in her throat as she did so. She dropped her bow to the ground, as well as her most prized instrument. The whispering started again. Drowning out the silence, Octavia allowed her mind to drift back to her lifelong friend, Vinyl, laying on the hospital bed, kept alive by unicorn magic. Octavia huddled close to her cello, clutching it tightly as she cried. Her song was complete, and now they were judging. Octavia allowed herself to wail in sorrow before the wind swept in the cracks of the walls and blew out her candle. So, my ghosties and ghouls, what do you think of that? Would you have gone through all that to save the ones closest to you? And do you think Octavia succeeded? Or is she now one of the members of that crowd for the next pony to come? What do you think happened? Leave me a comment down below and tell me. I'm hoping to hear from you. And if you like this, hit the like button and subscribe. I'm going to do more of these. I like doing them. I try and do them once a week. So hopefully you like them too. This is Warlock Boo. Hope to be spooking y'all later. Bye. I found you!
Oh!